if you don't intentionally build the proper kind of culture within your team and in your staff and in your people, you will spend more time hiring and firing than you ever will spend on your widget or your product. That's why I think most businesses fail.
Welcome back to the Dataliction Podcast, where we learn from leaders whose experience and faith shape how they grow their companies on purpose. Today, we welcome Tim Jensen to the show, the founder and president of the Veridus Group. Tim believes most businesses do not fail on the product, they fail on culture. He's spent 15 years proving that people come before product. And it turned into one company that turned into 3 companies. We talk about building culture on purpose, hiring the person instead of the role, and leading people who are heard, seen, and loved. And now let's jump into that conversation. Tim, I love your perspective on culture. I've had the opportunity of being around you and your team and feel your culture. But I think that a lot of times that's just a word. I think it's a word we read in a book and we know we're supposed to say it. I think you've lived it out in a really special way. Talk to me about your philosophy on culture, of people. How did you build your culture? Why is it important to you as not only just a nice to have, but part of your foundation over there, your company?
Yeah, I appreciate that, John, and appreciate the kind words about what you've experienced here, because that's what we want everybody to experience that walks into our office, is to have maybe a different feel. And I think there's a very simple definition of culture that we use in our office is, how does it feel in this moment, right? So that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I read a great quote not too long ago. It was more geared towards sports, but I think it also applies towards business, which basically says a good coach, right, coaches players. In our case, we coach people, which I think we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes. A better coach, or even a great coach, coaches culture, right, on how we actually engage. And so the way we define culture is not just how it feels, but also really the engagement that we have with each other inside the office. And so it's a key component. I think some people just jump into business and just assume that their skill set in whatever they're going to produce, whether it's a widget or a consulting or an idea or software or a restaurant or whatever it is going to be the thing that drives them forward as a company. And I do think that's a piece of the equation, but I do think that if you don't intentionally build the proper kind of culture within your team and in your staff and in your people, you will spend more time hiring and firing than you ever will spend on your widget or your product. And I think that and that's why I think most businesses fail. It's not because they weren't good ideas. There are some that are not good ideas. I think we can all admit to that. But I do think that most people have good ideas that are probably marketable in some form or fashion. But if they don't spend an equal amount of time on building their culture within their office, they're going to struggle just on how people feel and are engaged with each other.
It sounds like you're always thinking about the culture at the very beginning, but when did it become solidified for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was, so for me, my journey was a little bit different. I didn't just jump out of college and start a company. So maybe it is similar to a lot of different people, but I worked for 2 different firms leading up to me starting our company here. And so both of those companies, as I look back on those, had very distinctively different cultures within them. One was much smaller and one was much larger. And what I took from both of those was things that I wanted and then things that I wanted to avoid. I think that's pretty common for people. We try to avoid things that don't make us feel good, or if we're not listened and heard, we try to avoid those situations. And so I wanted to create a space from the beginning where those feelings, and we were kind of creating our own individual culture where people feel loved and heard and understood. And a place of freedom to be able to collaborate and say what they need to say without feeling like somebody's going to come down on them. So it's kind of hard, maybe, Travis, to answer that question specifically, because it grew over time. And we didn't go out and get, equity and then go hire 30 people, day one. We started with one, with me. And then within 6 months, I hired a second one. And then a year later, I hired a third one. And now we're 15 years in and have routed around 40 people. But it was very organic kind of in the growth. And I think the biggest component of this was, who are we hiring, right? Are we hiring people that will engage that my mindset of what a good culture is, which again, this was Tim's opinion of what good culture was. And over time, I think that comes through my personality, it comes through my faith component, it comes through the work product that I've had in the past, but kind of compiling all these experiences that we've had, and we're saying, okay, this is how I think good work gets done. This is what I've seen the best model is. I'm going to take the best parts of all of these. And then as you're hiring, as we've been hiring over the past 15 years, we're looking for people as best as we can that from the very beginning fit that culture and understand that idea and are going to kind of grow against it.
Tim, you're talking about culture in a way that helps us to understand it's not just everybody doing the same thing the same way, but you're mentioning the people aspect of this. I want to build on this around, as you have grown, now having 3 companies that kind of came from 3 departments and that expansion. So it's fascinating to me that you aren't trying to keep everybody isolated and like you have to be completely unified. It's about these people focused, the feelings. Let's talk more about how in the world did you successfully take 3 departments? Now you have 3 companies, but again, they all have the same culture. This is amazing to me. So talk to me about that growth moment for you guys, expanding from 1 to 3 and how you've kept culture and all of that.
Sure. So, and our people will joke a little bit. I want to get to that question specifically because I think that story is important to tell.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to say that we're in the middle of it. We don't know that we've solved that equation yet, but we are in the middle of that process. I do think it's easier to maintain that culture when it was something we pushed when we were all one, right? We were one company that everybody's hired under the same umbrella, and we've got 3 different divisions within that firm that we're doing 3 different things. And I do want to talk about why we chose to take that leap and make them individual entities, because there's a lot of reasons for that. Some are really good, and some may not work out so well for us because, again, we're just kind of in the middle of that space. But I think that to answer the culture question first, maybe I'll bookend it with this because I come back to it as well. Again, if you hire the right people that share similar belief system, and I'm not even talking about religious, but just how we engage with people in general. Like, are we collaborative or are we combative, right? And we don't want to hire combative people. We don't want to hire all extroverts because that doesn't work, right? We want kind of a mixture of people. And as we're looking for positions, we're very careful. Our interviews are pretty specific in certain areas. Our interviewees may not know that, right? But we're asking specific questions that give us at least a little bit of an insight. But I'll also tell you, we've also made mistakes in this process in our hiring. Sometimes you can't tell who somebody really is inside of a resume, a 1-hour interview, a 2nd-hour follow-up interview. Like, you just can't. And so when you bring them into the table, it's within the first few months, you're like, man, something is not sitting right with this. They're not engaging in the right way, or they're not engaging at all, or maybe they're engaging too much, or they're being too critical, or whatever it is. And so what I begin to watch in those spaces is how other people respond to them. So it's not just my feeling about it, because I could be wrong. It's how is everybody else responding? When that person walks in the room, what is the general feeling and understanding of how that works? So back to the conversation, though, of the 3 entities. So I started the company. I put the Veridus Group. I put that name on intentionally 15 years ago with the intention of eventually having multiple entities underneath there. I didn't really know how that was going to work out. But over time, we've had as many as 5 different divisions inside our company. And then we kind of boiled it down about 4 years ago to 3 and say, hey, we do these 3 things really, really well. So let's not chase every shiny object, which tends to be my personality as an entrepreneur. But let's focus on the 3 things that we do really well. I saved the shiny objects for my personal investing or my personal, I don't include the company in those. It's like, hey, let's go do an Airbnb. That's fun. Or, hey, let's do a wedding venue. That's fun. That's not fun anymore. But, it was fun for a while, right? So we kind of chased those things to keep my appetite going. But I really wanted to be able to focus and drill down on 3 things. And as we drilled into those 3 things 4 to 5 years ago, we did figure out that they all are somehow linked together, but they all are distinctly different. And we're hiring different kinds of people for each one of those ventures. For example, we have construction and design professionals that are kind of leading in our owners representation group. Then we've got really specifically engineers and an engineering component, which are totally different personalities typically, and how do we mesh those sometimes. And then our economic development team is even yet a different degreed type mentality and how they approach life, even in those different things. And so, but again, coming back to, do they want to be heard? Do they appreciate hearing other people? Do they want to be collaborative? Those are the kind of people that we're interested in. And so as we define these three things that all touch each other a little bit, it was important for us to notice that there was still some confusion in the market about who we were as a company. So if you hired our owner's rep team, for example, and then that team even might mention to their client who might be a mayor of a community and say, hey, we also do this over here. He's like, but I thought you guys were, project management. That's not project management. That's economic development. So there was this confusion in the market. Our clients ended up knowing us for one thing. And we probably learned some lessons in that with our business development and our client development status. But how do we talk about all three together? How do we do these things? Then we started looking at our website with our current marketing group at the time, which was 5 years ago, and said, hey, we don't think that this website really tells the story collectively of what all three are doing. And then what we found out as we did some surveys and polled some clients and other things is that, yeah, the website's kind of muddy. Like, we only come to you for this. We're not coming to you for the other two because we don't know you as those things. And that was pretty common no matter which group you were talking to. And like, we don't even go to your website. Like, why would we go to your website? And we begin to realize that websites are for people who don't know you for the most part, right? They're trying to figure out who you are, or maybe trying to do some research on you. And so we're like, you know what? This website doesn't really work. It works kind of as an overall company, but doesn't work for individual groups. So then we made a switch in marketing in general, and then we brought you guys on to help us kind of think through what does that buyer's journey kind of look like if somebody's going to buy our services or buy our people. What does that look like? How do we walk through that? And how do we make our clients really the hero of the story? Because that's been our story the whole time. We just didn't use that terminology. And so, Travis, you were helpful with that, and John, you were helpful kind of thinking us through that process. But kind of working through, one of the results, and I told you guys this was the challenge, is when we brought you on, was though, hey, we're going to go ahead and spin these three entities out into their own thing. So we need each tell their own story. They each need to have their own website, their own marketing, their own logo, their own branding, right? And it's going to be part of the Veridus family now, right? And so I think the Veridus brand, for those people who know it, brings some strength and some 15 years of strong leadership within communities and community change and all those different things. And now we've got, Veridus Advisors, a Veridus company, and a member of the Veridus family, whatever our people were saying at the time. Design really focuses on design, and that's a really key aspect for the engineers that are in that group. Civitas Strategies really begins to focus down on what they do. To bookend this with the culture discussion, this would be an impossible task if we'd started three individual companies and hired three individual, we're trying to find people for three individual entities specifically, because then we're not caring so much about how they cross collaborate between organizations. We're all in the same office. We all have our little areas that they're working within in the same building. So we're sharing the same spaces. So we still want that kind of collaboration. So if we're hiring somebody now for Veridus Advisors, they do get interviewed by the VA team, but they also get interviewed by the same HR person that does everybody else. They're getting interviewed by the same leadership team that's over everybody else. And so it's been easier to keep that culture because it's been a uniform body at the beginning, not just three separate entities. If we were to buy a fourth company now or try to spin something off, which you guys know I'm always looking at something like that would be a harder play for us, right? It'd be a much more difficult thing to say, okay, that's going to be exactly the same culture that we have in there. So
yeah, I appreciate that, Tim. One of the things I also really appreciate too is you mentioned on the culture, but the relationships that you develop in business development.
Yeah.
Walk us through a little bit on why you put such an importance on the relationships there.
Yeah, good question. I think, so we have 4 core values in our firm, and our first one is being relational. Because we think I believe, and I think most people in their bones would understand this, is that all business is done between people, right? So it's not, at the end of the day, no matter how automated we make it or how much AI is engaging in certain things, the end of the day, typically, and AI is going to change some of this, I'm sure, but it still comes down to people pushing the button and making the decision, right? Somebody still has to do that. And the way we engage with our people inside of our office is the same way we want to engage with our clients and our partners outside of our office, because it's maybe one of the old cliches, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And it's kind of a dumb thing to say, but it's true in so many ways. And I teach my people things just like that, right? They want to know that you care about who they are as a person before they're going to trust you enough to have you deliver some really important project for them or give them some really insightful information on data. They need to trust you as a person. They need to understand that what you're going through or what they're going through on a daily basis, maybe with their spouse or kids or their job or their pets or whatever, their hobbies, you have those same things. And so we have to recognize people for who they are, and that they're image bearers of a creator that is just totally maybe different than the way the world approaches them. And that we have to understand that they have issues going on in their life. So if somebody comes to a meeting and is really cranky that day and seems out of touch, or maybe out of normal, not a normal situation, we train our people to go, hey, engage with that person and find out what it is, because there's probably something. And we've got story after story after story of our people doing this and learning things about our potential clients or partners or whoever it is, and changing lives as part of our company, right? We want to encourage our people to engage at a personal level. The other thing, Travis, we talk about here is that if we don't do it internally, we can't do it externally. So if we're not treating our people the way we want to treat our client, we can't fake it out in the public if we're not doing it for real at home, right? Mm-hmm. So you can fake for a while, but people are going to kind of see through it, and they're going to begin to pierce that veil and go, you know what, this is just a facade that's not even real. These guys don't care. But I think if you were to poll our clients, you'd find that some of them may not even remember what we actually did for them as much as it was the fact that we cared about who they were as people.
Tim, I want to reflect back a couple things that I'm hearing from you, and then drill down on some practical advice you would give to founders, people starting up small businesses, maybe they're growing. But reflecting back, I am hearing you be much more focused on the person rather than the task, on the relationship much more than the project itself, on the organizational culture as opposed to the org chart, so to speak. And
Sure.
So all of these elements here obviously have been the foundation of what's led you to so much success in 3 companies and building it out. And I appreciate your humility of saying you're still building it out. I think that's part of why you continue to succeed. So for the founder out there who maybe they're in a corporate job right now and they said, this is my year, I'm going to go out and start something. Or maybe finally there's a company, they found product market fit, they're starting to hire people. They're like, wow, I found the thing. What's your advice to them? Something they should do, something they should not do, that you've learned along the way, because you're living the dream, Tim. You're living the dream that those guys want to live someday themselves. What's your advice to them?
Great question again, John. I think these are important things for us to think about a little bit on what advice we would give. I love coaching young entrepreneurs. Like I love having lunches and conversations with people that are just kind of launching out there. One of the questions I always ask is why? Why are you doing this? Right. So I think, you say our company is wildly successful, and I think from the outside, it certainly looks like that to a lot of people. I will tell you that our profit margins and those things may not be up to where most people in the world would consider it to be wildly successful. But we don't measure necessarily our success on the bottom line on revenue. We measure our success on our people being satisfied. Are they finding their purpose in life? Are they living out their calling? Are they engaged in their community, both at work and at home? Like what is happening with that? And so I think we are hoping, maybe is the right word, for rewards in the future, and better things to happen. And don't get me wrong, we're all well compensated for what we do. We've got great clients that pay, which is half the battle sometimes, in what we do. And so I don't want to say, it's not like we're pinching pennies, but at the same time, it's not the 20 and 30 and 40% profit that you're seeing every year. And man, you've got $1 million home and you're driving fancy cars, which is what the world sees, I think, as success. That's not our end goal. And so one of the questions I always ask them is why? What is your end goal? Is your end goal this love of money and pursuit of things? Or is it a passion for people and helping people grow where they are? And I think if it's the first, you're probably going to be disappointed your entire life. It's probably never going to be enough. There's always going to be something more that you want. So no matter what house you have, or no matter what car it is that you get, or whatever your status symbol is, you're going to be consistently chasing the next best thing. If you can rewire your brain to understand that part of our job as leaders, if not our whole job, is to make the people around us better, and in so many different ways, not necessarily richer, but better as individuals, and kind of walk them through those things, maybe better their lot in life a little bit, then we can actually approach business in a different way. And so I do teach I get to speak at a couple different entrepreneurship classes, ones at Purdue that I do a couple times a year. And one of the things I always tell them is that if you focus on the people before the product, you will probably get more people and better products. Right. Mm-hmm. So, but if we focus on the product first, and then we try to go find people to fit that bill, we're going to struggle with the product and the consistency, and you're probably going to end up going through people quite a bit. So I always tell our team is, look, I really like that person. I think I can teach him anything. Right. So if we want to hire the right person for the role. And there's been a few times we've had to hire the role instead of the person. And oftentimes that doesn't work out in the long run. But and sometimes I'll get my leadership team like, why are we hiring this person? Like, do we even need him? I'm like, yeah, but if we don't hire him, he's awesome and he's going to go someplace else. So let's find something for him to do because he fits our culture. We just had a conversation a couple of days ago with a couple of our leaders. We had a guy approach us and say, hey, I want to come work for you. And he's got some other things going on. He said, but, and soon, but in a bit. And I went back to our team and I was like, I was always told early on in our business that as we build, at some point, if you do it the right way, your company will become attractive enough that people want to come work for you. And I didn't believe it. For the first probably 5 or 6 years, like I was trying to find people. Like I was like, man, why don't you leave your really nice job and come work for this little startup, and we're going to pay you half what you make now, and we're going to, and so we've got lots of those stories. Thank goodness that people were willing to do and take pay cuts to come take a chance on us. But now we do have people. The last 2 or 3 hires we've made, people have actually sought us out and said, "Man, there's something going on over here. We want to be there." And so now we're able to build a bench of, even if we don't need them right now, we're like, yeah, let's talk to you. Let's have the conversation. If we like them, then they kind of go into our system, and yeah, maybe they go someplace else, but maybe they still really want to be here. And when that position opens up, or we get enough work to justify a new person, or whatever the case is, we can do that. So the challenge, I think, for us is we're kind of moving forward, and I don't mean to jump ahead in any of your agenda, John, but is as we become more efficient with the use of AI in the office, how do we keep culture and the personal touch on everything that we're doing? You guys are helping us through some streamlining of our business right now with some software stuff that we're looking at. And my constant challenge to our team is, this is great. You still got to call them, right? This doesn't replace that personal relationship that you're going to have. I hope this only enhances it. Like that's my goal, is that this is enhancing those relationships, making things easier, not more difficult or more disconnected. So I think that's going to be a challenge for us in the future.
Thank you for that, Tim. I really appreciate it. One of the things as we wrap up here, and that I love getting your perspective. One of your best quotes that you've told me a long time ago that I use quite often is, it's never as good as what you think it is. It's never as bad as what you might think it is. And yeah. I use that all the time. As I'm the eternal optimist, and I wondering what's really exciting you lately.
Yeah, from a business perspective, I will tell you, and you guys are a part of this, and your people need to know what you guys are capable of. But the software development that we're doing that is very specific to our, not only our work, but the way we work, I think is important, and understanding how we do what we do. I think it has been one of the most exciting things that we've kind of walked through as a company, probably in the last 5 to 10 years. We've been doing really good work for a long time. We've been looking for ways to do mainly two things: streamline our process, number one, internally, as we've gotten more complex and added different kinds of projects to our plate. It seems like our process is getting bogged down into some very avoidable pitfalls, maybe as part of the process. But we didn't have a system by which to actually mitigate that. When our guys are in 6 or 7 different softwares every day, and I keep getting software bills that are in the thousands of dollars per month just to do what I would find very, very simple and basic tasks. But yet they're moving back and forth, and that's where data gets lost and information gets changed, and things happen and mistakes are made. We're like, how do we develop a system that streamlines our process, that incorporates maybe some AI components that help us be a little bit more efficient, but at the same time give our clients kind of really good, solid access to their data on their projects, because we serve as owners' representatives. We're not construction managers. We're not designers in most of our projects. We act as the owners. So whatever information we have, our owners should have automatic, access to it as well. That's never been the case. And so we've kind of approached, we actually went out and looked at 2 or 3 different box products that we were kind of sorting through and going, man, does this work? Does this fit our needs? Does this replace it? And the answer was always sort of, but not really. And then the biggest piece for us was, how do we show culture and our distinct way of doing business inside of a program that seems somewhat impersonal at times? And so through your guys' leadership and helping us, do these things, we're now walking through our own software development, which I didn't think was possible, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And we're seeing our clients, as we show them and do focus groups, and we're asking them questions of what we need to do to make it better. I mean, the interest in this is off the charts from our perspective, and it's opened so many just this alone has opened so many conversations for us. So I joked with my team the other day. I said, man, this is working so well. When this is over, we're going to have to find something else, some other piece of software to create just to get people in our office and ask questions to. And then they say, well, Tim, you got to remember, we got to finish this first, which is always my problem because I want to go to the next thing. But they always say, you got to finish this first, and we need to make sure that it works. And I go, well, even if it doesn't work, I think we've gotten like 6 contracts off it anyway, and we're still kind of pushing this deal. So that has been, and it's been the biggest energy giver, frankly, for us. And you guys don't always get to see that because you're on the receiving end of a data dump or something else. But energy in the office is pretty high, especially in our Veridus advisors team around this, because they can see it coming. Like, I keep giving them tidbits and updates and kind of showing them what's going on. And they're like, man, this is, well, I've got my extrovert's like, this is amazing. My introvert's like, this is one more thing I have to learn. And I was like, yes, but all that other stuff's going to go away. Like it's going to take the place of the 6 things you're doing every day. It's going to just be in one spot. So ideally, it's going to be, I think it's a game changer for our company, having our own system, our own software to do this. And it's always, and the piece it's doing, I think, is what everybody wants to do right now, is incorporating AI into it. How do we really take advantage of the efficiencies that artificial intelligence can bring and bring it into a system by which we're processing? So that's what's exciting to us in the business today. I think it's offering us potential for expansion in other markets much faster than we thought it was going to, because we're getting interest from further away. And so all of a sudden, we're like, okay, what do we find a firm in that location that we want to acquire? Again, creating a culture problem for us potentially, or do we start an office there with somebody we know and trust and kind of build out through that way? So those are all always ongoing conversations.
Tim, I can tell you're excited. I can feel that excitement through the screen. So thanks for sharing all that. I think it translates into some of the other things you do even outside of work. So, some people in your life call you Tim. Some people in your life call you Coach. And so I have learned personally a whole bunch about basketball from you in my time being able to ask you questions. What is fascinating to me is hearing in the conversation we've had today, a lot of the principles of how you coach, you also lead your company with. And so just talk to me how you go from business into coaching. Let people know kind of what kind of coaching you do and all that. I am not a coach, so I love learning from coach. So Coach Tim, tell us some stuff about basketball and parallel to business.
Well, first of all, I only coach basketball. I don't know the other sports, I don't think, well enough. And some may even challenge my knowledge on basketball. But I've been coaching at some level since probably 1999. So probably 27 years. of coaching the game of basketball, mainly to younger kids, right? And so it's always been, I started out in like third or fourth grade doing, YMCA, summer league type stuff. And at the time, a buddy of mine was the main coach and his son was playing. He's like, hey, and we played on a co-rec team together, whatever. And so I started coaching with him. Over the years, I've gotten deeper into even varsity level 18U type stuff and teaching high school kids, both boys and girls. Most recently, I just finished up a stint coaching middle school boys, which is 7th and 8th grade, which is one of the bigger challenges of my life, just with the attention span, but also probably one of the biggest joys over the last 3 years of engaging with these young men. And my son was kind of walking through those ages at the same time. Specifically about basketball, though, I think basketball, more in my mind, more than any other sport, teaches us how to live life. And so I take, and I can compare and contrast to all different sports, and we can argue if you're a big football fan or if you're a World Cup soccer fan, or we can have those arguments, and that's fine. But there's very few sports. I don't think there's another sport that's quite like basketball and the way it's done. I'm from Indiana, so I'm kind of intrigued by the game just in general, right? So that's just kind of what we do here. I didn't grow up with a sports family. My dad was not into sports. In fact, I didn't even pick up a basketball until I was probably in 4th or 5th grade. And all of a sudden, I just fell in love with this game. And it is one place. So if I'm going to separate myself from work, one of the things that I love about going to middle school practice every day was that for 2.5 hours or 2 hours, whatever it was, I didn't think about work. Like there was no connection to projects or people or any of that stuff. And I, threw my phone in the gym bag and just kind of separated for 2 hours. And I'd pick it up at the end, 5 o'clock or 5:30. I'd pick it back up and like, okay, I can answer these few questions till 6, and then I'll jump back in tomorrow morning. But I think that the principles of coaching are all the same, whether you're coaching a business or a team or family in many ways. Sometimes my kids are like, okay, coach, right? And I'm like, that's dad to you. But, which is okay though, because I think we go through phases and of where our kids need really heavy parenting. And then I think our kids need some coaching as they get a little bit older. I've got a 17-year-old who needs to be making his own decisions because within the next 12 months or 14 months, he'll be on his own at college, making his own decisions at college. And so we're trying to more coach him now. When he comes and asks us if he can do something, I'm like, well, what are the positives and negatives of that decision or whatever those decisions are, kind of walking through that. And I still let him make the decision for the most part, as long as he's not going to hurt himself. And sometimes he makes the wrong decision, in my opinion, and he has to kind of feel through that. And we kind of talk about it afterwards. So the same thing comes. And I think when you realize that in coaching basketball, and I think any sport's the same, especially with young people, young adults, they still want to be heard, they want to be seen, and they want to be loved. And that's because they're people. And those are the kind of the 3 inherent needs of people in general. And so sometimes they're not getting one of those at home or at school or from their friends or from whoever, right? So they're looking for that. And I think coaches have a unique ability to speak into people's lives in maybe ways that parents don't always have that capacity. I think they have a platform. It's just that kids hear things differently from different people who influence them. And I think people do that too. You probably all experienced this, but you could tell your kid the same thing, 30 times. And then he comes home from youth group. He's like, well, my youth pastor said I should be cleaning my room. Because that's a sign of respect for my parents. You're like, really? Like I've only had this conversation, every week for the last 5 years. So thank you, youth pastor. But they heard it differently because it comes from a different voice. And so I do take those things from coaching. I've got my older 2 sons are both into basketball, which is fun. What's even more fun about it is they're into it different ways, because my oldest is not an athlete, but he loves the just the scheming and the data and the analytics and why players do certain things. And so he's really kind of got this cerebral approach to understanding the game. In fact, he loves it so much that's what he's going to pursue in college, is potentially coaching and sports management, and really kind of understand how these decisions get made in the next levels. My 14-year-old, who's going to be a freshman this year, he's been playing basketball for 8 years now. And so I've had the privilege of coaching him a lot of those years. But he wants to continue into high school. And if he gets works hard enough, maybe even into college. But he looks at basketball a different way. And having those 2 watch a game with us, we're big Purdue fans, but if we're watching a basketball game and it kind of gets torn apart in a different direction, different way. And I kind of am fortunate enough to come at it from both. I played through high school. I've never played in college, but I've played through high school. I love the game just as a release, but now I've come really into the schematic side of it, the strategy side of it, understanding how things work, why they work, what you can expect from the other team, how we influence defense, how we influence offense, to kind of take that next level approach. And so it's been able to fun to engage with both of my older boys in those conversations as part of that. But that is my release, John. It's like I can go watch a game for 2 hours, not think about anything. I can go coach for 2 hours. And frankly, I'd rather coach than watch. I think that position is a front row seat to not just the game, but these kids' lives, and these young people's lives. And so we get to sit front row and watch how they respond to pressure, and be able to coach them through those moments. Because I think when a kid gets trapped in the corner and how they respond in that moment is going to be pretty indicative of how they respond when they're actually trapped in real life. Like when something really pressures them from all sides on real life, do they break down? Do they keep their head? And so we're able to actually do it in a non-threatening environment first, so that when it gets to the real world, hopefully they're making the right decision. Like, this pressure is not so bad. I've been here before. I just need to keep my eyes up, take a peek, make a fake, and make my decision. To your point earlier, Travis, I give them these kind of life tools of, hey, nothing's as bad as it seems and nothing's as good as it seems. Like this moment isn't panic worthy. Like we just need to kind of fight through this and take the next step. And so, yeah, it is a passion of mine. It's probably my number one passion, frankly, is I'd rather coach basketball every single day. But somebody has to pay bills. And so we have to come into work. And so I bring that coaching mentality into the office. Every now and then I'll get called coach here at the office too, if I'm doing something that they feel is more coachy than business. But yeah, it is certainly one of the things that I love the most. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Coach Tim. This has been awesome. And I thank you for your time today. Yeah. I keep asking questions, but I know want to be honoring of you. Thank you so much. I love this. People need to be heard, seen, and loved. And I really appreciate taking that away from today's conversation. So you've been amazing.
Hey, thank you guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks for having me on.
Tim gave us the best definition of culture that I've heard. How does it feel in this moment? Companies fail on that question way more than any product. Put the person before the product and make sure every one of your people is heard, seen, and loved. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dataliction Podcast. You heard Tim describe what happens when his team stopped wrestling with disconnected tools and got a platform built around how Veridus actually operates. Well, that platform came from our team at Dataliction. This is literally the work that we do. So if your business is still held together by spreadsheets and willpower and your biggest decisions still happen without the full picture, we can change that. You can change that with your own all-in-one platform designed around your business. Instead of everyone, everywhere, and everything, it often costs less than you're paying across the board for all of those tools today. So go to dataliction.com, book a free call with our team, and let's talk about the options that you may not have even known were possible.